Welcome to this session on women and climate change by the International Association of Women in Radio and Television. This is a professional network of women across the globe dealing with many different issues, and one of our main objectives is to ensure that women's issues are mainstreamed in media, to ensure that women's concern receive the attention that they need in media. We looked at climate change this time because if you have gone to other panels during this CSW, you will realize that women bear the biggest brunt of climate change effects. Talk about floods, talk about other disasters, it's women that bear the brunt. And so, many a times when we look at this report, we see, of course, the negative effects of climate change, but some of the women feel very removed from the effects of climate change. I'm not an expert of climate change, so I will not pretend to talk about it. We have a formidable panel that is going to look into the issues that will be discussed after we watch a documentary that was produced by our members. It is trying to highlight the different things that women are doing to combat the effects of climate change in the respective areas. We have a segment from Kenya, we have a segment from Norway, Canada, and India. It's now time to watch the documentary. It will be a 48-minute documentary, and we have our moderator who will moderate that panel that I will introduce now. Our moderator today will be Rebecca Miles. She is a New York news reporter and producer. Her radio work has appeared on BBC World News, Radio France International, Free Speech Radio News, and WBAI Pacifica Radio. Miles is a regular commentator on RFI's Paris Live Drive Time show, covers breaking news stories, and hosts live events. Her written work can be found at Mint Press News and Sahara Reporters. Miles did a 6-part investigative radio series for WBAI Pacifica Radio on water and energy policy issues over the prospects of permitting hydraulic fracturing for natural gas in New York State. A new series will examine the history and development of genetic engineering and the use of genetically modified organisms in the food supply. She has spent a decade covering New York City as a radio reporter and so much more. I'm sure we'll get to hear from Rebecca herself. There is this program that has everybody's, our panelists' profile that you can go through. And there's some small papers, small cards that are being taken around. Please feel free to write your questions. So may I welcome our executive producer, Liz Miller, to run the documentary.
We're going to start right away. I just wanted to say one thing, which is this is a collaborative documentary made by 5 directors from around the world, and the subject was climate change. So we thought that the best way to make a film about climate change was to be as green as possible. So rather than having one producer travel around the world and create carbon impact, we're activating our networks. We're going about this theme in a very integrated way. And one of the key elements of this was making sure that young women's voices are central to this, both in the production of the piece and in the circulation. This is our world premiere. It's never been screened anywhere else, but it will be available to all of you who are engaged in climate change work or else. So with that introduction, we'll get going, and then as you've heard, we have a very esteemed panel afterwards.
Stenger liksom oljevirksomhet utenfor Lofoten og Senja. Det drøyer jo stenge til med Nordsjøen og dere. Alle kraner skal ned.
Ikke i morgen. Nei. Gracias. l'environnement, sur le changement climatique, c'est aussi de prendre conscience qu'il y a des gens qui vivent dans ces environnements qui sont parmi les plus touchés sur la Terre. Les déplacements sur la Terre, sur la mer sont plus difficiles.
Unless the needs of women and men are adequately incorporated into development programs, the programs are not going to be sustainable and the policies are not going to be effective.
To work together to see how you can address vile mtatatua hiyo shida ya maji huko juu, kwa sababu hata kama
of the so-called national interest, but we are trying to sustain our lands, our waters, our way of life for future generations that aren't here.
Ja, jeg har fått besøk av Silje Lundberg I dag, leder I Natur og Ungdom. Men du hører med deg, hva skal vi leve av I dette landet, når vi ikke har olje?
Vet du hva, det nå det på tide å komme seg ut av oljetåka og begynne å se etter andre muligheter for Nord-Norge. Og det burde man ha gjort for lenge siden. Men man har låst seg I den oljetankegangen, så på sett og vis så har man jo mistet 10 år som man kunne ha brukt på å pushe frem veldig mange andre gode tiltak. Jeg heter Silje Lundberg, jeg 25 år gammel, så jeg leder I Natur og Ungdom. Kan vi bare ha sånn situation som jobber med lokale miljøproblemer der de bor, I tillegg til at vi også jobber nasjonalt og internasjonalt. I Norge så fant vi olje for nesten 45 år siden. Og da I løpet av de 45 årene så har vi tjent oss enormt rik på norsk olje og gass. På statsbudsjettet så det vel noe sånn som hver fjerde krone, tror jeg, kommer fra oljenæringen. Og det har vært med å bygge opp det velferdssamfunnet vi har I dag, som gjør at man har gratis skoler, man har gode helsetilbud og så videre, blant annet fordi at vi bruker pengene fra oljenæringen inn der. Men det som har begynt å skje den siste tida, de siste 5 årene kanskje, at vi har blitt for avhengig av den, så den I ferd med å utkonkurrere all annen industri på land. Oljenæringen bare utkonkurrerer alt mulig annet. Så vi I ferd med å gjøre oss en vanvittig stor bjørnetjeneste hvis vi fortsetter dette oljeeventyret som vi hadde I 45 år.
Ja, det Silje Lundberg som sitter her I Natur og Ungdom. Vi snakker om klimaendringer, vi snakker om natur og miljø, om forurensning, altså denne kloden vår. Hva det som driver deg? Hva det som ligger I bunnen for engasjementet ditt, tenker jeg?
Jeg vet ikke, jeg var 12 år og rebell, og så skjønte jeg at verden var blodig urettferdig. Og at det gikk an å gjøre noe med det. Så da prøver jeg å gjøre det jeg kan gjøre med det. Så prøver jeg å få politikere til å gjøre det samme. småbåter som vi fisker og skjærer rundt omkring. Omtrent alle kystarealene til Norge, alt havarealet, er omtrent åpne for oljeindustrien. Det er veldig litt som er lukket. Og så har du områdene utenfor Lofoten, Vesterålen og Senja, som er noen øyer i nord over Polarsirkelen, så det er på en måte i arktiske farvann, som vi gjennom de siste 13 årene cirka har greid å holde stengt for oljevirksomhet, men som oljeindustrien gjerne vil inn i, og som lokalpolitikere i nord gjerne vil åpne. Det er så unikt, sant? At du har hvalene, du har fiskene, du har sjøfuglene, du har alt det. Og utenfor de her øyene så gyter den siste store torskestammen i verden, så de har en enorm verdi for fiskeriene. Så man må lurt hele Nord-Norge til å tro at den eneste løsningen for å få flere arbeidsplasser for denne regionen er å få olje. Så er man villig da til å risikere så sinnssykt mye for å få 100 arbeidsplasser. Den siste tida, de siste 2 årene, så har jeg begynt å få et enormt savn for den nordnorske naturen. Sånn at nå for hver gang da, som jeg er i Norge og ser de her fjelltoppene, og ser det enorme sandstrendene, eller et sånt asurblått hav, eller hva det måtte være, så får jeg en helt sånn, det er akkurat som at jeg forelsker meg i liksom min egen landsdel om igjen, om igjen, om igjen, om igjen. Hadde Statoil hadde sendt opp en rigg i morgen, så hadde jeg ligget foran denne riggen i overmorgen. Det er på en måte så langt jeg ville gått. Så det er det ikke noe tvil om. Lofoten, Vesterålen og Senja, det representerer på en måte et veiskille for Norge. Både når det kommer til å ta vare på sårbar natur, og når det kommer til klima. For dersom ikke verdens rikeste land skal la noe av oljen sin ligge, så skjønner jeg ikke helt hvordan land som skal ha råd til å gjøre det. Og dersom det ikke er de mest unike og sårbare havområdene vi skal spare for oljeindustrien, så skjønner jeg ikke hvilke områder det er som er verdt å bevare.
வேறு யாருக்கு ஃபோன் பண்ணுறேன், பஞ்சாயத்து தலைவர் கேஷியர் யாருக்கு தலைவர், இது யாருமா அலௌன்ஸ் பண்ணுற மகேஸ்வரிங்க ஓகே என்னம்மா சொல்லுமா இந்த தகவல் அலௌன்ஸ் பண்ணலாமா அப்படின்னு கேட்டவங்க சரி. இங்கே கர்வாவில் இருக்கிறவங்களுக்கு மட்டும்தான் சேதம் ஆச்சு. தானே புயல் வந்தவங்க ஃபுல்லாக ஊர் அமௌண்ட் ஃபுல்லாக எல்லாமே அழிஞ்சிது. சுனாமியோட தானே புயல் ரொம்பவும் பாய்ச்சிருக்கு மக்களுக்கு. சுனாமியோட தானே புயல் வந்த பிறகு இவ்வளோ கிடைச்சது, இவ்வளோ கிடைக்க ஆரம்பிச்சது மீன். மூன்றடியாகவும் 20 கிலோமீட்டர் முதல் 50 கிலோமீட்டர் வரை
காற்றடியாகவும் காணப்படும். காற்று தென்கிழக்கு தென்மேற்கு 19 கிலோமீட்டர் வேகம் வரை வீசக்கூடும்.
ஆக எங்களுக்கு வந்து விகேசிலேருந்து தகவல் வருது. தகவல் வந்ததும் நாங்கள் அலௌன்ஸ் பண்ணுவோம். என்னென்ன கடல் அலை உயரும், கடல் இந்த அளவுக்கு அடிக்கும், நீங்கள் பார்த்து போங்கன்னா அலௌன்ஸ் பண்ணுவோம். அப்படி அதிகமாக அடித்தா போகாதீங்கன்னு சொல்லுவான். அப்புறம் மீன் கிடைக்கிற இடத்த சொல்லுவான். மீன் கிடைக்கிறது பெரிய போட்டுக்காரங்க தான் போய் மீன் பிடிச்சி விடுவாங்க. அப்போது அந்த பெரிய போட்டுக்காரங்களுக்கு ஓரளவு வருவா வருது. சின்ன சின்ன கட்டுப்பாடு போட்டுருக்கு வருவா வரல. அந்த நாங்கள் அலௌன்ஸ் பண்ணதை வச்சு தான் அவங்க போய் மீனே பிடிக்காங்க. சார் சார் சொல்லுங்கள் சார். சுனாமிக்கு பிறகு மீனெல்லாம் ரொம்பவும் கம்மியாகிக்கிட்டே இருக்குது. நாளடைவில் கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமாக கம்மியாகிட்டே இருக்குது. அதுக்கடுத்து வந்து சுருக்கு வலையை போட்டு வேற இந்த சின்ன மீன் முதற்கொண்டு எல்லாமே வடிச்சுட்டு வந்துடுறாங்க. அப்போ வரப்பாத்து அந்த சின்ன மீன் இருந்தால் தான் வந்து பெருசாகி அதை வந்து சின்ன சின்ன மீனாக உருவாகி மருந்து பெருசாகும். அப்போ அந்த சுருக்கு வலை இருக்கிறதால இனப்பரப்பு ரொம்ப கம்மியானதால வருவாயில் ரொம்ப கம்மியாக இருக்கு. மீன் எடுத்துன்னு போய் அது விற்று பஸ் பேரு உங்களோட சார்ஜி அது லாபமாக தான் கிடைக்கும். புரியுதுங்களா?
சரி, ஃபிஷரிஸ் ஆஃபீஸ்ல இருந்து வந்தாங்களா? அவங்க ஃபிஷரிஸ் கார்டு எடுக்கணும்ல, அது எடுக்கல. இப்போ எப்போ எடுப்பாங்கன்னு கேட்கலான்னு வந்தோம்.
ஃபிஷரிஸ்லேருந்து வரும் 10 அவங்க வந்து என்கிட்ட சொல்லுவாங்க அலௌன்ஸ் சொல்லி நான் அப்போ அலௌன்ஸ் பண்ணுறேன். அதை கேட்டு நீ வா, நான் உனக்கு நான் வாங்கிட்டேன்.
சரி.
ஒர்க் ஆகலை. நம்ம வந்து விஆர்சிக்கு கை வச்சு இவங்க இதை சரி பண்ணாதான் சரி வரும்.
நம்ம மக்கள் வந்து அடிக்கடி தகவல் கேட்டதால வந்து இப்போ ரிப்பேராக இருக்குது. அது வந்து நம்ம நியூஸ் சொல்ல முடியல. எனக்கு வந்து செல்போன் மூலிமா வந்து ஆடியோ மெசேஜ் 2 வேலையும் வந்துட்டு இருக்கு. அதை வந்து நான் மக்களுக்கு ஒளிபெருக்கி மூலிமா அனௌன்ஸ் பண்ணியிருந்தேன்.
நான் வீட்டில் பார்த்து என்ன ஏதுன்னு தெரியாது. அப்போ நாளடைவில் எனக்கு எல்லாம் செய்தியும் தெரிஞ்சு தைரியமாகத்தால அவங்க வந்து பரவாயில்ல, இப்போ இந்த அளவுக்கு ஆகிட்டால அவங்களுக்கு நம்மளும் ஆகணும் சொல்லிட்டு போட்டியும் வருது. ஆனால் நான் அவங்களே கூப்பிட்றோம், வாங்க உங்களுக்கு என்ன ஏது வேணுமோ நாங்கள் சொல்லித்தரோம் வாங்கன்னு தான் சொல்லி கொடுக்குறோம். அப்போ அந்த திறமை அவங்களுக்கும் வேணும்னு சொல்லிட்டு எதிர்பார்க்குறாங்க. ஆக்சிடென்ட் 2 வீலரில் போக்குவரத்து ஷடன்லே இடிச்சு விழுந்துட்டார். வண்டியை வந்து மேலே சாஞ்சிட்டு சாஞ்சி காலில் விழுந்துருச்சு. கால் விழவும் உடச்சிச்சு. நோ சோம்பியம் 3 ஆண்டு சம்பாதிக்கிறத வச்சு தான் என் பிள்ளைங்களையும் எங்கள் வீட்டையும் காணும்.
எனக்கு ரொம்ப பெருமையாக இருக்குது. அதாவது இந்த தகவல் மையத்துக்கு போனதுலேருந்து அந்த மக்கள் வந்து நம்ம வேலை சொல்கிறத வச்சு எனக்கு ரொம்ப பெருமையாக இருக்குது.
நம்ம ஏற்கனவே கொடுத்தோம்ல. அப்போ கடலில் வந்து பிளாஸ்டிக் கவரு, இந்த காப்பி கவரு இதெல்லாம் போடக்கூடாது சொன்னாங்க. மீண்டும் மீண்டும் போட்டுன்னு இருந்தாங்க. அப்புறம் எப்படி மீன் கிடைக்கும்? பானிபூரி அதாவது என்னன்னா ஹாஸ்பிட்டலில் வர்ற கழிவு நீர் வந்து பாதிக்குது. ஃபேக்ட்ரியில் வந்து அந்த கெமிக்கல்லாம் வந்து கடல் வழியாகவே கலக்க விட்டுறாங்க. மீன் உற்பத்தி ஆகாதனால மீன் ரொம்ப கஷ்டப்பட்டுருக்குறாங்க. அதான் வந்து அந்த ப்ராப்ளத்தெல்லாம் எங்ககிட்ட சொல்லிட்டு இருக்கிறாங்க. நம்மளால் முடிஞ்சது நாம் கவர்மெண்ட்டுக்கு சொல்லணும்னு சொல்லிட்டு சொல்கிறாங்க அவங்க. நாளடைவில் வந்து இந்த காலநிலை மாறினே வர்றதால இங்கே இந்த கடலில் மீன் கிடைக்கிறதும் இதாகுது. மார்கழி மாதம் வந்து பனி பெய்யுன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க, ரொம்ப கம்மியாக இருக்குது. நாளடைவில் அந்த பனி இப்படி தள்ளி போயிட்டே இருக்குது. அதாவது அந்த சித்திரை மாதம் இப்படி புரண்டு வருது. இவரோட கிராமத்தில் கனவு என்னென்னா, இனிமேல் நான் நினைக்கிறது என்னென்னா, என் மக்களுக்கு நிறைய தகவல்லாம் சொல்லி அவங்க நல்லா பயனடைஞ்சு அவங்கவுங்க வசதி வாய்ப்பு எல்லாம் பெருகி அவங்கவுங்க போட்டு வச்சிருந்து நான் அவங்கவுங்க பிள்ளைகள் நல்ல மாதிரியாக படிக்க வச்சு பெரிய ஆள் ஆக்கணும்னு என்னோட ஆசை.
மீன் கிடைக்கிற இடம், மீன் போகிற இடம், கடல் உயரம் வர்ற இடத்துல வந்து அவங்க சொல்லுவாங்க. அவங்க சொல்கிறபடியே நாங்கள் பாதுகாப்பாக போவோம். அதுக்கு இல்லைன்னா தங்கிடுவோம். அது மீறி நாங்கள் போவோம். கடல் அடிச்சு எங்களை மீனாக்கிடுவோம்.
Sometimes when you want to identify your plants, you need to find it. You need the root. So usually we have to look in a tree. A tree you cannot collect the whole plant, like you cannot cut the tree and take the roots out of the ground. So you can just take a branch from this. You have to dig down to the roots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the roots are longer than the leaves.
Long roots for short leaves.
Il y a beaucoup de recherches qui s'est faite sur l'environnement de l'Arctique. mais sans nécessairement inclure les communautés, d'essayer comme scientifique, comme des échanges finalement avec les communautés pour le bénéfice de tout le monde. C'est ça qu'on essaye de mettre en place maintenant. I'm José, and I'm from University of Quebec in Trois-Rivières, and it's part of the Center for Northern Studies, which is englobing like many universities across Quebec. I'm sure you see some researchers coming in and out, and I know many of you don't know why. It's because it's kind of a hotspot for climate change. It's one of the places in the world where it's warming the fastest. And plants are one of the plants we want to study because the animals are using the plants and the people are using the plants. Que quand tu comptes faire des bandes de laine, c'est là que les échanges sont les plus beaux à voir, à la fois entre eux, avec nous, les rapports sont comme plus faciles parce qu'on partage, on mange ensemble, on campe, on installe le campement. Donc il y a comme une confiance qui s'installe, des liens, puisqu'ils se font facilement. Je trouve que quand on fait genre un focus group dans une pièce, puis que là, tout le monde s'en retourne chez eux après. Moi, l'usage des plantes par les humains, c'est toujours été quelque chose qui m'a vraiment fascinée. J'ai eu des contrats pour aller faire des inventaires dans le Nord, puis ça a été vraiment la piqûre. On a commencé des études avec l'année polaire internationale dans un projet pour faire des entrevues sur leur perception à eux des changements climatiques. Ça confirme ce qu'on observe par satellite, des trucs comme ça, ou des observations sur le terrain. Puis, mais ça confirme, ça va beaucoup plus loin que ça. Ça nous amène d'autres connaissances sur l'écologie des espèces, sur la distribution des espèces, les usages. C'est vraiment complémentaire.
Ihan nöpei uinapa. Nästa ei toisen tysket. Kajokset. Staka patak södä tetsin tysket. Halutotiot. Nästa on stania niin takojon. Takoja signaartkevää. Ajo näitä signaartkaskusia on taisket. Huono käsinäyttyntä. Muojamen tähän. Aussaat häisinäyttö on. Hauku juokset. Suipisikin tiot, näräkätikat juokset. Häisinäyttyntä. Hinaartäikenettä.
C'est sûr que la thématique sur laquelle on travaillait, comme les petits fruits, végétation, c'était au départ une thématique plus de femmes, parce que c'est des femmes qui étaient plus les détenteurs de connaissances sur la végétation, sur les petits fruits.
That's the bay here. You see Saint Cloac is there, so we're here. And you can zoom in with that's the zoom. If you use the down button, you're gonna zoom to the area. And that's the ride, you see the little dots? That's the ride we did yesterday.
Avec les jeunes, de briser cette idée préconçue-là, que la science, c'est quelque chose qui est comme loin d'eux. Donc, leur montrer que ça fait partie de la vie, que c'est les plantes sur lesquelles on marche dans la forêt, la mer, les roches.
So it's just a notebook.
Les autres, ils ont toujours été connectés beaucoup à l'environnement, donc c'est déjà quelque chose qu'ils faisaient.
The open land is all here, going all the way there. Our tents are here maybe. All the tents are on here.
Smuianda aici päiväpissi vain että oli jäädyksi käiväpäissä isoa and that's it yes that's been some adventures but it's just you like that that's it I'm saying one shot yeah and it's dit Zeitungs statistics and maximum number problem it's that's just I have to know this it's just what I do much that is
Les placements commencent à être affectés par la glace qui prend plus tard l'hiver, qui font plus vite, qui est plus mince, ont plus de danger. Sur le sol, moins de neige, plus de vent, c'est balayé. Et ça a un impact sur les animaux. Nous, c'est comme des concepts un peu abstraits. Puis eux, c'est leur garde-manger, c'est leur bout. Ça a une dimension vraiment plus palpable et concrète que nous.
Non è una cosa parlare no, andavano sentato del sito ma non mi sono sentato del sito sono stato mi faccio non mi ci metto di hanno chiamala a me che potevi fare ma che non stia io fare no come spesso sai faceva nice e mi consiglio e sia io sai non si timna davana io fare una tradizionale. Nasce magari mi ospita, che adesso mi ospita dei gaitari. Ma come volta ma che nasce, poi mi dà, andando tutto andiamo, ci stai sto molto ci davai, lei si stai sto molto ci esamento. Cioè, da 10 minuti tutto a trovare. Poi nasce, poi nasce, intorno a totale notte. ma non sta mai stato, mi dai stato, no, non è vero che sto dando. Ma spia già mi tutto da tutto andava, no, niente è stato. Mi sono io che non so riesci.
Working in areas of water resources management. And now, of course, with the coming in or setting in of the climate change, it's been agreed globally that water sector is most vulnerable sector from the impacts of climate change. I work with communities in community development, and I'm very passionate about the role of women. Lakini ile kitu ya muhimu tunafanya sana ni kuleta the experts na the ministries. Tuseme kama ni government, tunawaleta hapa ili wanaweza kuongea na wakulima. Na tumeshukuru sana kwa kutukaribisha hapa.
Nĩguo nangĩenda kũrĩma ta rĩrĩa gũtarĩ mbura-rĩ, nĩ harĩ thĩna tondũ tũkarĩma mboga rĩngĩ ikoma, tũkageria kwenja marima atĩ nĩgetha tũgĩtege maĩ, marima mau makanyua maĩ. Rĩu niĩ ingĩteithio nyone ũrĩa nguona tũmaĩ, kana nĩ irima nguona mũndũ ũngĩndeithia ũrĩa ngwenja, no ngene mũndũ nĩgetha ndĩkĩigĩre maĩ-inĩ mau, na nĩ ngwenda kuma gũkũ.
I've worked with women from different parts of this country, and what we have been trying to do is to see how we can be able to strengthen the capacity of those women to be able to take up leadership roles in agriculture and natural resource management. The way we do it is to strengthen their capacity through training, giving them leadership skills, informing them of the environment around them, the rights they have. I always ask myself, what is going to be different for men, what is going to be different for women, and have identified that they have so many challenges and so many issues. One of them being able to put food on the table for their families, and the other one is of course being able to get water, being able to get fuel. I really want to change the lives of women so that they can also be able to live more sustainably. Through introduction ya climate change, na takunendaigua maundu memo the more murario ria climate yakwa nyucenjetie no ria climate iyo imwikitete imwaffectite tiguo. Koguo ukienda kudeal na climate change ri kiambere mundu akani kuona gwitiriria atia nigetha maundu maya moka na hinya ri ugakorwo we maguka na magutigie ki urugamite oroguo. You see women very excited, desiring to go back home so that they can be able to implement what they have learned.
I'm a farmer here, and I grow potatoes, sell milk, and also vegetables around here. I'm also the chairman, Water Resource Users Association. We realized that there was a lot of degradation in my area of jurisdiction. The impact of the soil erosion had an impact at the Lake Naivasha. So we basically, as Water Resource Users Association, are here as a link between those upstream landowners and the downstream beneficiaries of the efforts that we are making up here. What we normally do, we look for the ownership of the land, and in most cases, the landowners are men. But when we come to on the ground, these are not the people doing the actual work. So when we talk to Annabelle, we realize that if we could focus on the women who are really doing the actual work, that would be more sustaining.
Mvua ikinyesha, maji yanateremkia chini ya mchanga, ikateremka, ikajaza hii shimo.
Na hii maji huwa inaisha ama bado inakwenda?
Haishagi. Inakutana na mvua hiyo ingine.
You can see quite a bit of conservation that has taken place up there in the mountains because before it was bare and there were no trees. The tree cover had really gone down. I think at that point we were talking about maybe 2% tree cover or forest cover in this country. But after quite a bit of training and talking to the farmers, you can see there is a lot of plantations that have taken place, and they have taken quite a bit of effort and interest to see that they can be able to put barriers to ensure that there is not going to be any soil erosion. Because for example, now you can see like this particular farmer, she's quite happy that she's able to plant flowers. She wasn't able to do that before, and the soil was so degraded. But now they're able to actually sustain and conserve the soil because the soil is no longer being carried to the river.
wakasomeshwa habari za kupanda miti. Hii ndio ilikuwa ya kwanza. Zinaziona pale juu.
Hiyo laini yote kwa fence,
hiyo laini yote. Alafu walitupea hii sana.
Ilikuwa okay. The Nipia grass.
Nipia. Nipia ndio walitupea. Nikapanda hii. Nikapanda akos. Ndio mchanga isiteremshwe na maji.
So it's quite exciting to see that the farmers are also very happy to see that as a result of that, it is also giving them more food production. And that also means that, giving them maybe the ability to be able to resist the impacts of climate change.
The workshop we had in Dada, the workshop was very successful, and we came up with issues, and the community were able to come up with some interventions that.
What I would want to see in the next 5 years is women being able to participate effectively and adequately in the decision making at the county level. Either biogas or something. So having both women and the county governments actually sitting together and thinking, what issues are there for women? What issues are there for the youth? So those guys are empowered. Yeah. And so for me, whenever I look at some of this work, I see women are living better lives. They are more empowered. That gives me all the energy to go on and to think what else I can be able to do. There must be a solution. So what you want?
I come from a community of strong women. And Saikas is the community that I call home. It's located right in the heart of what is known as British Columbia in Canada. We are not just another stakeholder, to sit around the table with other people who have interests in these projects. We are the sovereign people of these territories.
Enbridge wants to run destructive tar sands oil pipelines through the Rocky Mountains, through our territories, and all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Then they want to threaten the Pacific coast with oil spills from over 200 super tankers a year in some of Canada's most dangerous waters. We hold more than 25% of Enbridge's proposed pipeline route in our territories, and we will never allow it to be built.
Power Shift is a gathering of hundreds of youth from across BC, but we've seen attendees come from Northwest Territories, Alberta, and beyond. And Power Shift is about, raising awareness on different issues around environmental racism, climate justice, and to give voice to the frontline impacted communities who are being impacted by tar sands expansion. To shift to the people who actually are on those front lines, and Canadians in general who are looking for more accountability from governments that are supposed to be leading. communities from the Yucatán Alliance have been very vocal from day one that we will put our lives on the line. We will stand in front of those bulldozers when they come. But we don't want it to get to that point. We want this government to deal with us on a government-to-government basis. We've been hearing the federal government and the province as well refer to this resistance to Indigenous peoples as opponents of the national interest, trying to label us as eco-terrorists and villainize our communities, villainize our voices, and try to instill fear within the people who have found their voice.
We're here and we're not going anywhere. We will not go away and we will only get stronger.
This pipeline proposal plans to cross over 1,000 streams and rivers, many that are critical fish-bearing streams. Our people depend on the salmon and other life beings that are in those water systems. It's the water that connects each and every one of us. With Canada coming and saying that these pipelines are safe, they want us to look in a silo. So it's just look at this pipeline. Don't think of what's happening in the tar sands and how it could be expanded. It has nothing to do with this pipeline. Don't think about those tankers, those 200 tankers that would travel on the coast. It has nothing to do with this pipeline. Don't think about the increase of emissions and carbon into our atmosphere that, impacts not only our communities where this project is being proposed, but it is becoming a global issue. One pipeline spill would impact everything, our plants, our fish, our animals, human health, all those things would be threatened. Specifically, this company known as Enbridge has had over 500 pipeline spills in a span of 7 years. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's always a constant struggle. We all need water for life. We all need air to breathe, and that is the basis of our resistance. No short-term contracts or short-term work opportunities are going to replace the water that gives everything life. Many leaders in this movement are Indigenous women, and just the strength of these women have inspired me to keep going as well. My late great-grandmother, the Dr. Sophie Thomas, she was a traditional healer and medicine woman for our people and has given me gifts to carry on the ancient knowledge of traditional medicines. It is my duty as a woman, my duty to my nation to ensure that these important pieces of our identity are protected and passed down for generations to come. She always promoted, the health of the environment, and her quote was, "If we take care of our earth, it'll take care of us. If we destroy it, we'll destroy ourselves." And this is a message that we've been bringing, to these companies, to the governments. It's been unprecedented in Canadian history that so many people have engaged in a review process over a certain type of development, specifically the Northern Gateway Enbridge Pipeline. Over 4,000 people across the nation have submitted their opposition to this project. We have non-Indigenous peoples, environmental organizations, different unions. It's not just protecting our communities. Yucatán people. Yucatán means people of the land. We have a responsibility not only to ourselves, but to our brothers and sisters around the world who are being impacted by climate change. We're not scared. We're going to keep fighting.
So thank you very much for coming. My name's Rebecca Miles. I've been a reporter in New York for 10 years, and I don't know what you thought of that film, a documentary, but if you've got any questions you'd like to ask the panelists today, we handed out little white cards. If you could hand them to the end of the line, and Ivy and Nancy will collect them, and we'll try and answer them as many of them as we can. So I just wanted to introduce who we have with us here today. Some have travelled quite long distances to be with us. Khadija Lemkesher, who's Tunisian filmmaker. She grew up in Tunisia. She studied film in Paris. She's been assistant director on some films that might be familiar to you, English Patient. She has a long feature that's due to come out screening shortly called La Cinemonde, and it's a fiction film, but it's about life under Tunisian's director Ben Ali, which I'm sure, as you all remember from the revolutions that took place, Ben Ali was thrown out. And sitting next to her is Dr. Hala Yusri. She's head of Rural Sociology Department at the Desert Research Center in Egypt. She got a PhD in Rural Sociology from Cairo University. She's been studying and has done research into rural communities and the Bedouin societies, and women in climate change is her main interest. Sitting next to her, who I didn't have a chance to meet earlier, is Melinda Tuhas. She's an American journalist who covers stories on the environment, women's issues, and criminal justice. A lot of her works have appeared in Connecticut radio, and she's also filed for Free Speech Radio News and the Women's International News Gathering Service. Her written works appeared in the New York Times and the Hartford Courant. And sitting next to her is Liz Miller, who is responsible for the documentary we just saw today, and is an award-winning documentary filmmaker, and as I mentioned, the executive producer of Hands On. She was educated in America in electronic arts, social thought, and political economics, and has spent half a decade in Central America, and is currently Professor of Communications at Concordia University of Montreal. So it's quite a panel. I wanted to start by asking, when I saw this documentary the first time, there were parts that really resonated with me. And so I wondered if I could start from the right to just ask the panelists to say, was there a particular aspect of the documentary that resonated with you in your own work?
I want to congratulate Liz. It's very, very good work, and all the directors that are working. And I know that it's a huge job for you and for the editor. I think that the editor is here. I want to congratulate you and the musician too.
If he is here, one of the directors.
Oh, yeah, you were here. I didn't see you. So congratulations to you.
Stand up.
Yeah, stand up. You have to. And I think that it's this documentary show how how the images are so strong to demonstrate that, to show the problems like climate change. And I think that these witnesses and testimony are very, very important, because we can't imagine, I can't imagine as a Tunisian, what is the climate change all over this country and what is happening. So thank you for that.
I also want to extend my real gratitude to you, Liz, and all the staff has been contributing to have this film. Actually, first film I've seen, it was the Al Gore film, and he was a politician and talking in a very scientific way, you know, to express what's the dilemma of climate change, and that was really good. But now we're talking differently. We are look at the grassroots with the people who are, you know, getting affected with the dilemma of climate change. And this is what's unique about this movie. And I have a suggestion here. If we can translate that little, you know, written things into different countries, I think that will give them the opportunity to reach to the people in their countries.
I work in, congratulations also. I work in print, mostly radio, and also online, and video is the only medium I do not work in. And this is a good example of how powerful it can be. I've covered especially issues around the tar sands and Keystone XL more than the Enbridge line, but I haven't been there. I still want to go. I'm still going to try to get there. It's a long, long way. And just seeing it, actually seeing what it's like there, and you know, just kind of inspires me more. And I think that's something that, you know, video and film can do like no other medium.
I mean, I could just say, I think, again, I think it's networks like the International Association of Women in Television and Radio that have this opportunity, one, to give young women directors the chance to make work and express their views and get access to voices that may not be yet in the mainstream. Because as we know, it's young women who are going to be on the forefront of this issue over the next 10, 20, 30 years. But I also think it's a way to make more carbon-friendly productions. So figuring out creatively, how do we cover what is obviously a global reach issue, but without the carbon imprint of flying all over the world. I think we really figured something out meaningful here, and I hope, you know, we'll continue to be able to do that.
I've got quite a lot of requests about how people can get the film. Can they buy it today? Is it available online? How can they see it again?
As of now, we will be streaming the film on the IAWRT website. So if you do a Google search for IAWRT, it may take a week or so. This is literally the world premiere. So we don't have it up yet, but I think within a week we'll have a link to this. And we're obviously going to think about how to get it to people, either for broadcast in their own countries or for organizing, because our objective is to get it out far and wide. So stay tuned to iawrt.org to see how you can get it.
I've got a compliment from, and lots of questions. One person wrote that it's a very interesting program, but they want to know why the Caribbean wasn't included.
That's part 2. The sequel.
And they also want to know about the Norwegian activist, how many young people were involved. I think the number was 7,000, and they're all under the age of 25, which is amazing. But the other question was, so how do we get more young people involved? Any ideas?
How to get young people involved?
I think the future for the young generation And just to have broadcasts, a film movie like this will encourage, young people to take an action, a quick action. How will they protect their future from the threats of the climate change? Encouraging them through the media, through the social media, which they are now fond of, and they are using it as much as you can imagine. This is how we can encourage them, but how to integrate them. And this is the main point, is that every country, they have to have an open space for the young generation to go from the social media tools, or like the Facebook, the Twitter and stuff like that, into the real platform for planning for their future life and for their countries.
I could add that PowerShift, which was in the last segment, I believe it originated in the US, and every year in the US there's thousands of young people who come to PowerShift here. And I don't know if you know how many other countries they have PowerShift, but I think it's a source for thousands of activists to learn more about what each other is doing and to build a stronger movement. And I've been involved, not involved, but covering, I've been down to West Virginia. I just got back from my 5th trip a couple days ago. Mostly I've been covering mountaintop removal coal mining, which is an outrageous assault on the earth and on the people who live there, and the plants and the animals and the water and the air. And I was just there this time because people may have heard in January, there was just 2 months ago, there was a spill of a chemical that's used in coal production into the water source, the drinking water of 300,000 people, which is a big chunk of the total population of West Virginia. And many, many of the people who are really actively involved, doing civil disobedience, climbing trees to prevent them being cut down, just a lot of different actions, are young people. They're people under 25 because they realize that this is the earth they're going to inherit. And I think that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of how many young people are involved. I mean, it's still a fraction of all the young people out there, but there are some very, very, very dedicated, committed, radical people who feel like, we need to do something or they won't have a future. And so I think the best thing some of the older ones among us can do is to support them financially, because they don't have any money, and share our wisdom, share our information, whatever knowledge we've gained over decades of organizing experience. And in my experience, those young people are interested in that. They want to see that. They don't think they have all the answers, but they have a lot of commitment and a lot of courage.
I wanted to go back to you again, Melinda, if I might. Sorry. If I could ask you, Melinda, as you're covering environmental stories, are you finding there are less outlets now interested in covering environmental stories? And the reason I'm asking is, the New York Times used to do some great environmental coverage, that all disappeared. It seems to be a sort of last thought in terms of what is covered. I'm just thinking about how this kind of documentary would be shown and where it would be shown. And we did have a couple of questions about, the use of radio and television. So I just wondered about your own experiences.
It's sad. My own experience is sad. Last year, when I was traveling, going to West Virginia and some other places, I was reporting for like 5 different outlets, magazines, radio, online, and 3 of the major outlets I was reporting for, a magazine, a radio program, and 2 radio programs went under last year. Free Speech Radio News, which stopped broadcasting. In fact, my report on the Women's Climate Summit was one of the very last reports that was broadcast. It's just come back online only so far, about a month ago, and people are really working to get it back on the air. That's a very important outlet, in my opinion, and I think it would be great, to try to get it out over the air, not only online. I did several stories for E! Magazine, which was a magazine that lasted, I think, about 20 years, and it's gone. They're going to try to do something online, but it's not even online again yet. So it is very, very sad. I mean, the whole media landscape, just in general, aside from just environmental issues, is very bad. I mean, it's, at least if you want to make a living at it. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of blogging that goes on, and some of that is very, very good and groundbreaking. But it's just, everything's really changing, and I was just reading a book on the train on the way in about this very topic, and the number of journalists, it said like 1,000 journalists a month, every single month, are losing their jobs. So it's, there aren't a lot of people who actually can make a living doing this anymore, and it is a problem.
I just wanted to say it's true, there's a sort of climate change fatigue in terms of funding, and most broadcasters are unwilling, which again highlights the value of alternative funders sticking with issues that the mainstream media feel like we've been finished, we've done. But I also, when we were working on this piece, did quite a bit of research and spoke to distributors of ecological films who told me that this could be the very first film on climate change and women. He could not cite Bullfrog Films, which is the largest distributor of environmental films in the United States, for example, so we don't have a single title, particularly on women and climate change. And I think this is really just touching at the surface, but that we have to go much deeper in terms of exploring the issues of women and climate change, intersectionality, how this is contributing to other impressions of women. And while we hoped to do that with this piece, we realized that it's going to take time to establish the partners who are willing to speak in depth and really get into the more complex issues, which I know you could speak a lot to, and maybe you could, about, for example, how climate change is connected to other issues in each of your countries.
In Tunisia, it's the questions of climate change is very important for us. We have many problems, and I want specifically to speak about desertification, because I used to work in the south and in the desert. I used to meet many women there and to share experiences with them. And 20 years ago, I was in a set as an ID shooting in a movie, an American famous movie, and I met many people there. And I went 3 months ago, and they weren't there. The village was abandoned, and even to shoot there in August in the same time, it's impossible for us now. So even the sets is disappeared. So I think it's an emergency, it's an alarm for us. And on my road, I met 3 months ago a very arid region, and I met a little community of women making something very amazing, and with an NGO working with them, and they were developing genetic spices. And the arid zone was green, and it was like an amazing thing to find in the yellow zone arid, this green part, very green, and all these women working. And in myself, I was like, with my photo, I have a problem with my hardware, and I can't show you the photo. And in my dream and hope, I want to stay with them and to make documentaries with them and to show for all Tunisian people. And because even in Tunisia we never heard about this woman, this region. It calls El Fersh, and it's in the southwest of Tunisia, and they are NGO like United Nations working with them, and it was a very beautiful green space in the desert and against desertification. And these women want to go out from the village. They are keeping their land, and they want to stay there. So for me, I think that in Tunisia especially, we have to be aware and raise awareness about climate change, because we made demonstration 3 years ago, a revolution about women's rights, about all these things, but now we have to make a demonstration about climate change and to speak about all these women and to be aggressive in our documentaries with our media and all of that, and I think that the image are for me the one of the best best ways to cry and to make aware politicians, private group and population about that problem.
In Egypt, we have a lot of environmental issues concerning, also related to climate change, which is also desertification. We have a lot of desertified lands, especially on the northern part of Egypt. Where is the delta? Where is the most affected areas in the entire world, the deltas? In Egypt, like half of the delta, one of the scenarios talk about the erosion of half of our delta goes to Fanta. It's the middle of the delta. So there is a lot of questions about what those people who are living in this area and working as farmers, what they are gonna do, and how much money we are gonna lose in case of inactive. We are losing thousands of dollars per day due to desertification. And of course, desertification is due to a natural phenomena like climate change. This also will cause a lot of migration, and either illegal immigrations to the north, or, and this is happening, or, you know, immigration to any other place, interior immigration. And also, Egypt is not really prepared for such worst scenario, or even less worst scenario. So, we need a lot of attention that should be directed to integrate and mainstream gender and climate change within our strategies, our plans, our programs, even our little projects. This way, we will consider women and men in our programs. This way, we will not gonna lose a lot. This way, will give us an opportunity to plan for the future in a scientific way and taking in consideration what we have and what we want to have in the future.
If I could come back to you with a question, because I know that you spoke at the Rio Plus 20 and you were quite critical then. What do you think, I mean, it's been 21 years since the signing of the Kyoto Protocols. There's a lot of fighting. The United States never ratified it, and Canada pulled out in 2001, I believe. What's your hope of any kind of concrete plan? And certainly with these talks coming up in 2015 in Paris, whether it's going to rely more on grassroots actions, as we're seeing now, protests on an activist level, while governments continue to fight regulation. I wonder what your thoughts are.
I'm honored to be one of the women major group, and this belongs to UNEP. We're very active women around the world, and we have concrete demands, and we usually join the open working groups preparing for post-2015, and we are seeking a standalone goal within the Sustainable Development Goals, plus the cross-cutting, we need gender as a cross-cutting issue with all the other goals for sustainable development. So we are paying a lot of effort. Actually, we also meet individual states personally, like representatives for these states, and we are lobbying with them, and we are advocating for our rights. And by the way, the basic thing that we are advocating for is the women's rights, all rights. So this is one of the things that we are doing, and I'm really proud to be part of them.
Another comment on the documentary was that a lot of the women, one viewer saw that a lot of the women were actually empowered through the work that they were doing. Was this intentional in your choice of who was included?
Absolutely. As I may have said or not perhaps clearly, the goal of the piece was actually to look at the connection, the intersectionality of women and climate change. And so by incorporating women in these issues, they are actually developing leadership in their homes, in their communities, and in other aspects. And so in some cases, the intersectionality of climate change and women, people focus on violence, increased violence, for example, in different arenas. If they have to walk much farther to get their water, for example, are they more open to the incidences of rape or other forms of gender violence? So in this case, we were really trying to look at intersectionality both in positive contexts, and we didn't achieve sort of finding some of the more negative consequences. But certainly, like the young woman from Norway, who is the leader of a 7,000 wide organization, or the woman from India, who really has achieved a great degree of respect in her community as a result of her learning this new technology and being an educator. And she actually is a self-learned woman, so she had no formal schooling.
Another question is, how do we engage more with lawmakers to get involved with campaigns?
As I said, I just got back from West Virginia, and I was there on the final day of the state legislative session, and there was a bill introduced to try to make sure that the kind of egregious violation that happened when this chemical spilled into the water supply did not happen again in the future. And there were people, there was a coalition of people that held a rally right in the rotunda of the Capitol on the last day so they could be very visible. And they had done a lot of work with their state legislators. And I think this was 2 months, when I was there, it was 2 months after the spill. The original, it happened on January 9th. On January 13th, the water company said it was okay to use the water, to drink the water and do whatever with the water. But the body that needs to make the official designation is the state health department, and as of last Saturday, they still had not made that designation, so hardly anybody was using the water. And the hardship and the fear that people felt, it was just amazing. That you don't have water, that you can, in a modern city in America in the 21st century. And so people were taking that outrage and that anger and that fear and got this bill introduced. It had a lot of parts to it. Some parts did not pass, but in the end, the bulk of the bill did pass. And people feel like if it's enforced, which is a huge if, it will provide a much higher level of, security. And West Virginia, more than I think a lot of states, is the coal industry and the chemical industry kind of are very, very powerful there. And so for people to be organizing, and this was a chemical spill related to the coal industry. So for people to take up this issue and demand that something be done, I mean, I think that really pushed it over the edge and to success. It is a question, you know, what's on the books and what's actually done in practice, but at least they have some stronger legislation now.
This up, I'm afraid. I've just got to make a few announcements. Sorry. If you want to continue this conversation, there's a meeting at 4:30 this afternoon on climate change at the Church Center for the United Nations on the 2nd floor, if you'd like to go there. And I just want to thank a few people. Sorry? Oh, so we can continue with a few more questions. Well, I've run out of all my card questions, so I don't know if there are any more questions from the audience. If you could just raise your hand and we'll take them. The lady in the 3rd row.
Yes, Kathy Lee from Maine, but I also do greenhouse gas reduction project work under the Kyoto Protocol in sub-Saharan Africa. I think it would be terrific to get this film distributed as widely as possible, because there's not nearly the kind of presence and awareness of women in this field that there needs to be. It's great that everybody's here, but this is a very small turnout compared to lots of other events here. But my question is, I've been told, and I don't have all the details, that there's a UN climate summit on September 23 in New York City. And it would be wonderful if the film could find its way into that event and be featured. I don't know if you're connected to that.
And don't hesitate to follow up with suggestions and help us get it there, because if we don't have those, we probably don't have those connections yet. So we would absolutely want to be in touch to follow that up. So thank you, Kathy.
Okay, I would just ask, is there anybody in the audience right now who's connected to that event?
I'm part of Mediators Beyond Borders International. I'm their UN delegate. Hi, I'm Vicki Eisenberg. I'm their UN delegate, and I'm also on the Climate Change Committee. I'm chair of their UN Women. And at the climate change meetings at all the COPs that I've been to, when you look around, and I remember in Copenhagen, I stood there with Wingard Mahadi, and we counted how many women journalists were in the room. And one thing that I would really encourage you to do is take a look at the Conference of the Parties. The meetings in Bonn especially, which are the pre-meetings, it's not that hard for journalists to get credentialed, and that's where you're going to meet delegates, make connections, and find resources that will help you with your projects, and also people who will be saying, I have the funding, but I need someone to focus on this. Someone I can trust who can do it in a professional way. And there's now starting finally to be some sensitivity to do it in a way that is, I don't want to, more cognizant of the impact of gender and the connection between gender and climate change. At the climate change meetings, if Mary Richardson wasn't there talking about the impact of women on climate change, I'm not sure it would even have been a side event. So the last piece of suggestion is to see if you can get your film incorporated either as part of an organization, part of what you're doing now as a side event, or try to connect with another organization. I'd be happy to help you to have that as a piece. I
Hi, my name is Ariella, and I'm here with Girls Learn International. Thanks. I'm 16 years old, and I go to high school here in the city. And I think like a problem that I see a lot in my school is that, like, yes, we have a recycling program, but nobody really cares, and they just throw all their stuff together. And so I'm trying to change that. So I'm making a big PowerPoint to educate everyone on these issues. But I feel like still in my community there's this problem of indifference amongst high schoolers and middle schoolers. And I was wondering if you had any ideas on how to educate high school kids on why these issues connect to them and how they really matter, because they seem to really not care, and it really bothers me.
I'm blanking out on the name right now, but I will get it to you. I was on a walk last summer. It was called Walk for Our Grandchildren Against the Keystone XL Pipeline. And there were some young people there who were part of the group. This one boy, when he was like 13, sued several entities in the US government because the government was not doing what it needed to do around, to reduce greenhouse gases. And then his cousins sort of took it up and they formed an organization, and that's the name of which I can't remember right now, but they are doing some amazing things. One of the things that off the top I just remembered was if they lived near the coast, they were making these big, holes and showing what the, where sea level was now and where it was expected to be in X number of years. It was a very visual, demonstration. But they're doing a lot of really great work. So when I remember the name of the organization, which should be soon, I will share it with you.
I just want to thank you for standing up and asking for support. I really admire you. And we're so happy you're here with us. And one of the things that we do in Canada is we connect things like recycling programs to film series. And so, really well-made, interesting, compelling films like Gasland. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's amazing.
Later in the year in my class. Yeah.
Yeah, so HBO, and so using films as a way of bringing people out and just very, maybe over a whole semester, making it in ways that people come out, interact with each other, that's not just about the issue, that's bringing them together, and then small things like the recycling. So we have found that films over time, bringing it into a series is a terrific way to get people slowly educated about fracking or about sea level rise or about all of the different issues that I know you care about.
One more question?
John Woods, World Christian Life Community. I was interested in, you're speaking about a goal for the STDs on climate change. Can you speak a little more to that? Do you actually have a goal in mind, or?
Actually, the Women Major Group, we are trying to advocate for a standalone goal for just women, okay? For women only, and this is for the post-2015. And we need the women to be a cross-cutting issue within all the other goals will be addressed by the states, of course. We, as civil society, we are empowered and we are now, doing a lot of work to advocate the international community to go for the standalone goal for the women and other cross-cutting issues within every goal will be posted in the 2015.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up here. I wonder if we could just have an applause for the audience. I'd like to thank Hedra, Dr. Hala Yusri, Melinda and Liz, thank you very much. I want to thank IWORKS, or the International Association of Women in Radio and
I do feel hopeful out of necessity. I feel increasingly worried about the tension between those of us who know and those of us who choose to negate what we know. I feel energized personally by an increasing amount of media that is bringing these issues into the mainstream. And I think exactly as these two women, Vicky and Kathy, mentioned, we have to find strategic ways of bringing media together with grassroots organizing so that we can pressure and the lobbyists and make sure that the only pressure is not coming from transnational corporations. So I hope that right after this, we can make sure that we're making those synergies, because I think for me, that's where I find the hope.
Save a couple minutes and just say I agree with everything Liz said. But very briefly, I'm fairly pessimistic, but I don't act that way in my life. I try to bring information out that could make a difference, and also I tried to bring out stories of people who are putting everything on the line for their futures and to try to stop this cliff we're heading toward. And I think, you know, gatherings like this are part of it, and the film, and, you know, all the work that people are doing. I mean, we shouldn't stop doing it. So, and I feel better doing it, and I meet wonderful people, so that's what I intend to keep doing.
I'm very optimistic here. I'm full of hope that tomorrow will be better than today. And I'm full of hope when women get in charge. I really believe in women, and I think if women will be in charge, there is a lot of things will be changed. Nationally, regionally, and internationally. Let's hope for the women's leadership to be more stronger. Thank you.
I think that Hella said all, but I keep hope because I think 3 years, that 3 years I don't sleep well. I'm a little bit afraid in my country, and even we have a new constitution with up to date, because we are equal with the men in it, and we have many rights. I'm not feeling well because we are preparing election, and I have always afraid to one time we can all lose all these rights in one day. It cannot be. So I'm working, and we resist. And I think Hella, women like Hella, they are in Tunisia and all over the world, and we will keep fight, and we will win, I think.
Sure.
I want personally, on behalf of the International Association of Women in Radio and Television, IWT, thank Khadija, who is a member of our board of directors, Dr. Hala Yusri, and you're taking our program home because you're going to go online and look what these women are doing. Phenomenal work. Melinda Tuhas is right here in Connecticut, right? Liz Miller, former member of our board and member of IWT. And a new member, Clapper, Rebecca, and a matriarch of the organization sitting in the front here, quite a few of them. Lila Doss, sitting right here. The Norwegian Passe, and the president of the chapter of the Norwegian chapter. Take a stand. And there's Norwegian chapter all around, and some Canadians and what have you. Thank you all for coming. We want to thank you specifically with a token of our appreciation. I see, Diana saw that she had done that. Yeah, hold it up there, yes. And this is just a way to say thanks. Khadija and Hala come all the way from North Africa. I love North Africa. I love everywhere anyway. So thank you, our planning committee, Diane Bailey, Nancy Cohen, who is over there, Lila Doss, Catherine White, who else? And then the people who are on the floor documenting stuff for us today. Here's our member of the board, local board, Pragya, forgive me, say your last name. Okay. And we have Diane Bailey, who is the treasurer of the local chapter. Oh, by the way, we have over 500 members and still growing. We have 12 chapters in 12 countries. We're everywhere like rice, like gravy over rice. We're only not in Antarctica. All right, and we're checking that out too. And we have another member here from Uganda. I really learned a lot from this film.